Rosemary Ndlovu, the killer cop who cashed in on death in the heart of Gauteng province, lies Tembisa, a bustling township known for its people, its resilience, and its crime. It is in this very township that a chilling truth began to unfold. A story so disturbing that it shocked the entire nation. One that involved murder, betrayal, and a twisted love for money. But what made it all the more horrifying was this. The person behind it all was supposed to protect the very lives she destroyed. Her name was Rosemary Ndlovu, a South African police officer, a woman in uniform, a woman with a badge, a woman entrusted to uphold justice. But Rosemary had other plans. She wasn't chasing criminals, she was orchestrating deaths, and each body that dropped brought her one step closer to what she truly craved: money. This is the story of how Rosemary Ndlovu turned her family tree into a kill list, used insurance policies as weapons, and hid in plain sight behind her SAPS badge. A story of greed, control, and psychopathy. Early life and personality, the making of a manipulator. Little is publicly known about Rosemary Ndlovu's early life. She didn't grow up in the spotlight. She was raised in a typical South African household, marked by the usual socioeconomic struggles of township life. She knew hardship like many others. But unlike many, she didn't respond to adversity with endurance. She responded with strategy. Cold, calculating strategy. Colleagues would later describe her as quiet but firm, a woman who kept to herself but seemed to always be scheming. Others noted her charisma, a type of manipulative charm that made it easy for her to gain trust, even affection. She could joke. She could listen. She could act like a caring family member, a doting partner, a committed officer. But beneath that exterior, something darker was growing, a profound detachment from the value of human life. Psychologically, Ndlovu showed signs of classic psychopathic traits: glibness, superficial charm, a grandiose sense of self-worth, pathological lying, and a lack of empathy. But more than that, she displayed instrumental violence, violence for gain. Her killings weren't crimes of passion. They were planned, rehearsed, executed with clinical precision. Not out of emotion, but out of cold intent. South Africa's life insurance industry is massive. In a country where economic inequality is rampant and state support is limited, funeral cover and life insurance policies are as common as electricity bills. They're seen as necessary safeguards against the devastating financial impact of death. But to someone like Rosemary Ndlovu, these policies weren't safeguards. They were opportunities. Starting as early as 2012, Ndlovu began taking out multiple life insurance policies on her relatives, siblings, cousins, her niece, and even her romantic partner. She often listed herself as the sole beneficiary, sometimes without the knowledge or consent of the insured person. In other cases, she lured victims into signing policies under the guise of financial planning or assistance. This wasn't a single act of fraud. It was a strategy, a long game. By the time her crimes were discovered, Ndlovu had claimed nearly $4 million in insurance payouts. But what made her unique wasn't just that she profited from death. It was that she planned death to generate profit. Each insurance policy had one thing in common. Someone close to her would die suddenly, often violently, in a scenario that seemed plausible but suspiciously convenient. And Rosemary would always be there, grieving just enough to look authentic, but never too distraught to file her claim. Her first confirmed victim was her cousin witness Madala Homu. In 2012, his body was discovered near Olifantsfontein. He had been bludgeoned to death. It was staged to look like a robbery, a random act of violence in a country where such tragedies are sadly routine. But there was one glaring anomaly. Ndlovu had recently taken out a life insurance policy on Homu worth R131,000. She claimed the payout within weeks. No one suspected her at the time. It was seen as just another violent crime in a sea of similar stories. But for Rosemary, this was only the beginning. Her plan had worked. The paperwork was accepted. The body was buried. The money arrived. It had been a test, a proof of concept, and it had worked flawlessly. This first murder revealed a chilling aspect of her psyche, the ability to assess risk and reward like a business decision. She didn't act impulsively. She learned. She observed. She improved. And then she scaled her operation. Sisterhood and silence. The murder of Audrey Ndlovu in 2013. Tragedy struck again. This time it was closer to home. Her own sister, Audrey Ndlovu, was found dead in a rented room in Thokoza. No signs of forced entry. No signs of struggle. The death was classified as sudden but natural. But once again, Rosemary had taken out multiple insurance policies, at least 6, on Audrey's life, totaling over R700,000. Her name was on every one of them. The psychology here is brutal. To kill a sister is to destroy the person you shared a childhood with. To plan it, profit from it, and cover it up requires a total absence of empathy or a complete detachment from familial bonds. In forensic psychology, this level of emotional disconnection is rare, especially among women who statistically kill less often and usually not for financial gain. But Ndlovu was an outlier. Audrey's death went unquestioned. After all, who would suspect a grieving sister? And even more so, a policewoman? The SAPS badge didn't just shield her from suspicion, it validated her. When she filed claims or explained events, people listened. People believed her. This is a key psychological weapon she wielded: authority bias. She used her position to manipulate perception. Because if a police officer says it happened a certain way, who are we to argue? The niece who trusted her. The murder of Zanele Motha. Zanele. Motha was young, full of life and optimistic about her future. She was Rosemary Ndlovu's niece, a blood relative who looked up to her aunt with admiration and trust. That trust, tragically, would cost Zanele her life. In June 2016, Zanele was reportedly involved in a mysterious car accident in Kempton Park. She was taken to Mabasa Hospital, suffering from injuries, but the accident details were murky from the start. There were no witnesses, and reports were inconsistent. Zanele survived the initial incident, but what happened next changed everything. While in hospital care, Rosemary took charge of Zanele's recovery. She was the only one allowed near her. Reports suggest Rosemary even insisted on discharging her early. Zanele, still in pain and unable to walk, was taken from the hospital and placed under Rosemary's care. Shortly after that, Zanele died. The official cause was listed as complications from the accident, internal injuries. But deeper investigation revealed something chilling. There were multiple blunt force injuries that did not match a vehicle crash. They matched repeated physical assault. It was as though Zanele had been beaten after the accident while she was vulnerable, trusting, and defenseless. And once again, Rosemary collected. Multiple insurance policies, all taken out in Zanele's name. She walked away with over R120,000. Zanele's death marked a shift in the pattern. It wasn't just about killing. It was about killing people who needed her, people who leaned on her emotionally and physically. This revealed a specific psychological dynamic: coercive control. Rosemary isolated her victims from support, placed herself as their caretaker, and then weaponized their dependence. It's a tactic common in intimate partner violence, here used in familial homicide. Love turned lethal. The murder of Maurice Mabasa. Maurice Mabasa was a rising star in the Department of Health. Charming, hardworking, and respected, he had been Rosemary's longtime boyfriend. To many, they appeared to be a committed couple, but behind closed doors, the relationship was toxic. Maurice reportedly wanted to end things. He had suspicions about Rosemary's money dealings, her mood swings, her obsession with control. What he didn't know was that she had already taken out life insurance policies on him. Not one, but multiple. The total value? Nearly R500,000. On October 14, 2015, Maurice's body was found near Olifantsfontein, the same location where her cousin had been killed. He had been stabbed more than 80 times. The violence was excessive, personal, intimate. Stabbing as a method of murder often reveals a deeper emotional connection between the killer and the victim. It's not distant like a gunshot. It's up close, repetitive, almost ritualistic. But in Rosemary's case, it wasn't passion, it was control. A demonstration that she could eliminate anyone who threatened her plans. She filed insurance claims within days. What's striking here is how Ndlovu maintained her composure. She was seen at Maurice's funeral, weeping, playing the grieving girlfriend. But behind that mask, she had already calculated her gains. The attempted murders plotting for profit. In 2017, Rosemary's appetite for murder reached its peak. She was no longer waiting for people to die naturally or staging accidents. She was actively plotting assassinations. This phase exposed her full descent into moral depravity. Her next targets included her sister Joyce and Joyce's 5 children, her niece Mashaba, whom she planned to drug and burn alive, her brother Given Ndlovu, who narrowly escaped death to carry out these murders. She approached Hitman. She offered them thousands of rands, money she had earned from previous deaths. But these weren't professional criminals. Some were taxi drivers or petty thieves. And crucially, one of them turned on her. The most chilling plan involved Joyce and her 5 children. Rosemary had arranged for a house in Bushbuckridge to be doused in petrol and set alight, killing everyone inside. The motive? She had taken out over R1, $2 million in insurance policies on Joyce and her children. But this time, things began to unravel. One of the would-be hitmen reported the plan to the police. An undercover operation was launched. Rosemary was recorded on camera detailing how she wanted her sister killed. She was heard saying, "We must make it look like an accident. No evidence, just flames." That video would later become the linchpin of the prosecution's case. The trial unmasking a predator in 2021, Nomia Rosemary Ndlovu stood trial at the South Gauteng High Court. The nation watched, horrified, as the scale of her crimes was revealed. The prosecution painted a picture of a woman driven by greed, consumed by control, and devoid of empathy. She was charged with 6 counts of murder, 4 counts of fraud, attempted murder, defeating the ends of justice, conspiracy to commit murder. But the trial wasn't just legal, it was psychological theater. Throughout the proceedings, Rosemary behaved erratically. Sometimes she laughed, sometimes she cried. She flirted with journalists. She waved at cameras. At one point, she even asked to speak directly to the judge to explain herself. These actions pointed to a possible narcissistic personality disorder, a pattern of grandiosity, attention-seeking, and a lack of genuine remorse. She didn't just want to win the case. She wanted to be seen. Forensic psychologists observed her for signs of psychopathy. She fit many of the criteria: manipulation, deceit, impulsivity, and shallow affect. But more than anything, she exhibited instrumental aggression. Violence used not out of anger, but out of calculation. She wasn't out of control. She was in complete control. Justice served, a nation reflected in November 2021. The court found Rosemary Ndlovu guilty on all major counts. She was sentenced to 6 life terms for the murders, plus an additional 30 years for the other crimes. The courtroom broke into silence as Judge Ramarumo Monama read out the sentence. For many South Africans, it was a moment of closure, but also a moment of horror. Because if a police officer could kill her own family, plan to murder children, and manipulate an entire system for money, what did that say about the fragility of our trust? The case left deep wounds, especially among the families of her victims. For them, the pain wasn't just about loss. It was about betrayal. Betrayal by a sister, a mother figure, a protector, the psychology of a killer in uniform. What drives a woman, a police officer, to become a serial killer? Psychologists point to a blend of traits: antisocial tendencies, disregard for rules, deceitfulness, lack of remorse and narcissism, entitlement, exploitation of others, Machiavellianism, manipulation, strategic planning, emotional detachment. But Ndlovu's case adds another layer: opportunistic psychopathy. She used systems, not just weapons, to kill. Insurance companies, police resources, social norms. Her badge wasn't a shield, it was a sword. She didn't kill to silence. She killed to gain. A cautionary tale, the story of Rosemary Ndlovu isn't just about murder. It's about trust, systems, and how easily we can be deceived by appearances. It's about the cost of unchecked greed. The victims weren't strangers. They were her people, her blood. As South Africans, we must ask, how do we protect ourselves from people like her? What checks must be in place to stop the next killer who hides behind a badge, a smile, or a family title? Because evil doesn't always come with a mask. Sometimes it comes in full uniform.